are now listening to a Forward Mile Podcast Network production.
All right, welcome to the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. We are sitting here, I'm sitting here in the studio. Anthony's joining us via telephone again. Anthony, what's going on, brother?
Not much, just, living the dream in Las Vegas.
Yeah, right on. Hey, speaking of the dream, we didn't get a chance to talk about a lot of our bets that we've been placing the last week. I don't know if anybody's been following us on Twitter at Vegas Squares, but not to toot my own horn, I've been on kind of a little bit of a roll lately.
Yeah, it's been pretty good for your picks on Twitter as well as some of my picks too. So,
yeah, and since we last spoke, episode 40, we previewed the NHL opening round matchups. We've had at least one game in all 8 of the series. Damn. What are your thoughts on basically how it's opened up? I mean, I would say for the most part it's went, pretty much the way we thought, with the exception of Columbus getting sneaking one by and getting a win in Washington yesterday.
Yeah, I was very surprised about that game. I had Washington in most of my parlays and was very upset about that loss. But
you risked it with no biscuit.
Yeah, I lit those tickets on fire, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, my surprise was Anaheim coming out really flat, losing 3-0. I can definitely tell you that wasn't my the way I had envisioned things going. I know it's the only series we have differences on, so you being up one gets you one step closer to, what was it, $20? Is that what we said?
Yeah, $20. Make it holla.
So, knowing what you know now, I mean, like you said, some games went status quo. I mean, Nashville needed a third period rally, basically, to beat, even though the score didn't indicate it. The game I thought was closer than what the score said. Nashville kind of needed a rally. Pittsburgh came out and just crushed. That was crazy.
But that's what I thought the Flyers would need to get that momentum and see what they needed to do right and maybe squeak out the series. So,
was there any game basically that you enjoyed watching the most out of all those games?
Out of the most, I really enjoyed the Knights game, of course, but being a big fan of the Knights anyhow is very good this year. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a fun one to watch. We were both in the building for that. It was a hell of an atmosphere, an awesome excitement. You could feel the energy every time, especially with only one goal happening in the game so early. I mean, every time there was a scoring chance for either side, you could just feel like just the tension. I mean, the excitement that was brewing, the nervousness that was brewing. And I mean, and I know, we've been to enough games. There's a lot of new fans in there, and you just every single time the action's on your side, or even potentially LA could score. It was just like the crowd was really into it, but you could tell they were definitely like on the edge of their seat at all times. So it was a good thing to see. I mean, it was crazy to think that the goal happened so early in the game, and then that was just it for the rest.
I mean, but it was only a one-goal game, but it seemed like there was a lot of offense. Granted, there was only one goal.
Yeah, I mean, in the first couple periods, there was not a lot of scoring chances for either team. Later on in the second and mostly in the third, both teams got their opportunities to put more points on the board. Both goalies both goalies played exactly like we thought. I mean, I thought a couple more goals would be scored, but I thought it would ultimately be, a
2-1 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I played the under in the game, so ultimately I thought it would be a smaller total. A bigger total than it was, but smaller total than what most people expect out of Vegas games, because we peppered the over a lot this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a surprise. The total was 5 coming in. That was like, I don't think we were 5 all year.
No, which is funny. I actually bet the over 5 tonight, so I think there'll be more goals scored here. I'm thinking a 4-2 matchup here in this one. I think I'm hoping Vegas takes it, but I'm thinking with Doughty out, that's going to obviously make the defense for the LA Kings be a little more depleted. And
Yeah, I remember at one point in the game, they were talking about him. He was the only player with over 20 minutes ice time, and that was deep into the third period. So
yeah, I mean, let's talk about that for a second, because I want you to take your VGK hat off and review the play. And do you, in your opinion, believe that hit warranted a suspension?
Yes, I do believe the suspension. A lot of people were thinking that it would be 2 games instead of 1. When I first saw the hit, I'm like, that could lead to a suspension, but I was only thinking 1 game, and that was the outcome of it. I replayed it over and over, and I'm like, yeah, it could possibly be 2, but realistically, I could see 1 in that situation.
Now, I watched it a lot, and I've gone back and forth between 1 game and no suspension. Ultimately, my thoughts are I really believe that they should not have been suspended for this game. I understand the nature of the hit. To me, it looked ill-conceived, and it looked like there was intent. However, I believe that where he went to actually make the contact, it's kind of like the defenseless receiver play. When the receiver catches it, he knows a guy's coming, but then all of a sudden when he drops it, now he becomes defenseless. It's not a fair situation. I think once Carrier passed the puck and started to kind of take cover a little bit, you can see where he kind of turns his head down. I think that's where Doughty's shoulder kind of goes into his chin. So I really feel like he's a victim of the movement of Carrier. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm okay with Doughty being out, for a game, and obviously helps the Vegas Golden Knights. I just always believe, you want to beat every team with their best guys on the ice. And realistically, people have been saying, this season's rigged. This season they got the best players. The expansion draft isn't fair. I want to go through every single team's best effort.
With their best players, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that 1 game. I mean, obviously going up 2-0, going on the road to LA is huge. Don't get me wrong. You have to win. I think Vegas has to win this game.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I mean, doing it without Doughty. I mean, they beat them with Doughty, So I think they could do it. I'm not saying don't suspend the guy because I want him on the ice. I get it. He made a hit that was very, very questionable in my opinion. Could go either way. Obviously, fines do nothing. So I mean, you could have fined him, whatever, and it does. It doesn't really actually, Doughty's not going to learn from it. But and the thing is. Doughty's been public enemy number 1 for Vegas Golden Knights fans. I mean, he was basically the one who said, this team isn't real. We don't, they're an afterthought in our mind. We're going to be ahead of them in the standings, come the end of the season. Obviously, he's been incorrect on all that. He's obviously the infamous, other than Quick, he's the other infamous king who snapped his stick after a Vegas Knights goal. He snapped it right on. I mean, you saw the intro video at T-Mobile Arena. You saw they used that image a few times in their hype videos, I guess, is the new thing now. But, he's definitely public enemy number 1. There's photos out of Vegas Golden Knight fans flipping him the bird, which, come on, let's be classy here. I understand hockey fans are a different breed, but we don't want to be associated with the mongrels sometimes of some of these fan bases. So, I mean, obviously every fan base is going to have their idiots, and I guess we have ours now too. So, I mean, c'est la vie.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really would err on the side of not suspending him, but really kind of monitoring him. There wasn't even I don't believe, I can't remember now. I have to look back on it. I don't believe there was even a penalty on the ice at that point. So
no, I don't think so either.
So I mean, I'm not saying that they don't miss that referees don't miss calls, but I mean during the course of the game, even the officiating didn't believe that it was such an egregious hit that it warranted any immediate punishment. So to me, I don't know. I mean, given the nature and the physicality of the game, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, it looks like Carrier is going to play tonight, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree with the suspension overall, in my opinion. A lot of people would be, hey, you're crazy. He deserves to be out of there. But if I'm watching playoff hockey, I want the best of the best being on that ice. And Drew Doughty's a really good player. I'm not going to take anything away from him.
Yeah, maybe if the NHL came down, gave him a fine, and told them next kind of cheap hit like that, you're definitely getting a suspension, and it's probably going to be worse than one. Those would have been like 2 or 3 games instead.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be all right with that too. So
yeah, to me, it just seemed. I mean, the NHL. I mean, they outlined it clearly of why they decided to make the call they did. I really don't have a problem with what they did when they explained it. I just, in my mind, probably would have let him play. Given regardless of what the team is. I mean, I'm sitting here telling you he should play, and I'm a Vegas Golden Knights fan, so I'm definitely not taking a biased opinion on this situation. I believe he's a good player. I want the good players in. I don't think the hit was that egregious, and I don't believe Carrier is going to miss a lot of time or any time. So I was surprised, but not shocked by their decision to give him a game. And I will tell you this: when you talked about some of the people saying that he was going to get 2 games, from everything I understand, in a regular season he may have gotten 2 to 5 games for that hit. But Ken from Sinbin, Ken Bulkey, who we've had on the show before, said that basically 2 games or 3 games is the equivalent to 1 playoff game as the magnitude of it. So I think that's why they ultimately decided on 1 instead of 2. So plus,
I think that was I think it was a fair outcome. It wasn't too crucial for them, as well as kind of set the point what they want to have in the playoffs too. So,
and if you take Doughty out of the next 2 games and Vegas wins them, and then it's 3-0, and people stop watching the series, and then you start to get these people who believe, they're just setting it up for Vegas to move on, or setting up for Vegas to make the Stanley Cup, or whatever. You see a bunch of stuff on Twitter if you're on it enough. So.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah. You talked about Pittsburgh. You expected Philadelphia to you expected this to happen to Philadelphia. I can't say I had shared the same sentence. Let me start that sentence over. I can't say I shared the same sentiments with you because I did not expect a blowout in this series because, to be honest with you, I thought Brian Elliott would come back dominant, and he did anything but. And I thought Philly was physical enough that they wouldn't let Pittsburgh do exactly what they did. But if this game is any indication of what Pittsburgh can do when they're not thrown up against the boards like LA did to Vegas, this is scary.
Yeah. I think that blowout is kind of what Philly needed to do to maybe have a chance in the series, though.
That's a weird way of saying it. How do you figure in a sense like that? I mean, I understand. I think Philly had to work hard all year. I mean, they endured, really bad losing streaks. I mean, I understand what you're saying. If you get punched in the mouth in game 1, at least you have enough time to rebound and reassess. Because you and I both think this series is going 7, and 1 game does not make an entire series. But, I mean, I just have a hard time believing that if Philadelphia wasn't physical right out of the gates in game 1, and I know the speed of Pittsburgh is obviously their MO, and Crosby is the best player on the ice, but I mean, if Philadelphia looks like this in game 2, I think we can probably wrap this up.
I mean, at this point, do you think Philly's going to put in Mrazek or stick with Elliott? Or?
Well, I know the coach said that there's no change, or this was right after the game, no immediate changes, but I can't imagine Elliott's going to be on a long leash at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if he gives up 2 goals pretty early, they might pull him and put in Mrazek and see what happens.
Yeah. New Jersey and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay won pretty convincingly. They got out to a 3-0 lead. Kind of let it slip. Came 3-2, but then they eventually shut the door on them. That game, obviously went how both of us expected. What else was there? Boston really kind of took it to Toronto there. It's hard to assess an entire series, obviously, after 1 game, but, because the home teams for the most part, with the exception of Anaheim and Washington, did what they were supposed to do. So, I mean, one game does not, like I said, one game does not make a series, but the shocking thing that Anaheim, came out and, laid a goose egg. Toronto came out and really it almost seemed like Boston was in their head the entire time, obviously capped off by the ejection.
Toronto had an early goal, and that was about it for them. So
I thought Minnesota played better than I thought they would. Dubnik's going to keep them in this series. I'd like to change my pick from 4 games. I don't think Winnipeg's going to sweep them, based on the way I watched Dubnyk play. I think that series is going 6. I'll still hold firm to my prediction because we didn't really have anything riding on that. So I'll still honor the fact that I said Winnipeg in 4, but I really believe Minnesota's going to get their 2 games at home, at least 2 of those games at home. Dubnyk's playing well enough, and their team's good enough to steal 1 or 2 games. So I think Winnipeg's in for a tougher matchup than I initially anticipated.
Yeah, I think I said 7 for that matchup.
So I'm leaning. I'm leaning to believe more towards what you were thinking than what I was thinking. So, but like I said, we're one. game,
it's still possible. So
we're one game in, and they could get swept. You never know. I mean, like they get down 2-0 and then they get down 3-0. They may just give up. I don't know. That may be the end of Bruce Boudreau.
Yeah, you never know.
So I got a question. I was thinking about this at the game.
Yeah, good.
And I just wanted to get your quick take on it. And I think I know the answer to Marc-Andre Fleury. But when I was watching Fleury and Quick play this game, and obviously the Theodore goal early in the game was a really good goal. I mean, it just got by Quick. It is what it is. But are we in this series watching 2 Hall of Fame goalies at this point?
Potentially. I would say at this point, if there's one goalie out of the 2 that gets in, it's Fleury.
Okay.
With his dominance in the regular season as well as in the postseason too. I mean, he's won 3 Stanley Cups. He's got over 400 career wins.
Well, I mean he
potentially 500.
He was the backup for 1.5 Stanley Cups. So
yeah, but still a little piece of that team and all that. But
I understand. I mean, he effectively as a starting goalie, a true starting goalie, he won 1 cup. I mean, Quick's won 2.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to advocate a case for either one of them because I think Marc-Andre Fleury is a Hall of Fame goaler as well. I think most of his Hall of Fame numbers were done 2003 to 2014?
2010.
Yeah. 2010,
Fleury.
11. Because I think as Crosby went down, Fleury's production went down as well. That team wasn't, that great when Crosby wasn't on the ice for the better parts of 3 years. So.
Yeah, I would say if I had to choose one and only one at this time, Fleury is definitely the Hall of Famer in my mind between them.
Okay.
But I could see a case for Quick as well to get in. Depends how he ends his career and all that. I mean, I still think Quick has a couple of years in his belt. So. Yeah,
no, he's still got time. I mean, I'm not ready for Quick to ride off in the sunset. But when I watch him play, and he's only been around, I think, about a decade. I mean, when he is healthy, last year he was not healthy. We know that he only played, I think, a handful of games, 15, 20 games. But he's gotten a Conn Smythe, he's gotten, 2 Jennings trophies. He's been second in the Vezina twice. He's made an All-Star teams. He's got the 2 rings. We know about those. He's got double-digit shutouts in 2 different seasons. He's about ready to hit 300 wins next year. In 10 years, effectively, he didn't play. He played 3 games his rookie year, which wasn't classified as a rookie. His actual rookie year, he played 44, so he was effectively not even a starter then. He also had 1 year, the year last year where he only played 20, and then 1 year where he did not. He only played 35 games. So to have 300 wins essentially in 9 years is pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's averaging right around 32 to 35 wins per year almost. if you don't count out those short seasons and all that.
Right. So, I mean, to me, it just seems like I think Quick, if he stays healthy, is well on his way to being a Hall of Famer. Like you said, I mean, he's not on the cusp yet. I mean, his career is not over, but I would say 3 or 4 or 5 more years like he's had this year. I mean, a 2.4 goals against average and 921 save percentage, and I believe, I don't know if it's. I mean, obviously the Jennings Trophy is what it is. You give up the least amount of goals as a team. He's had decent backups behind him, but ultimately it goes to him. I'd say 3 or 4 more good years than this, and I'd be hard pressed to keep him out.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, his save percentage in my mind is lower than I thought it was. I thought it was closer to like 925 for the season. I mean, it's still impressive, but
925, 921 is a total. I mean, that's what maybe a goal or two more allowed. His goals against average.
Yeah, something around there. Yeah,
pretty good.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, who had the lowest?
Considering you.
I mean, who's had the lowest goals against average in a regular season? I mean, he had a season when they, 11 and 12. I believe that's when they won the Cup. Yeah, they won the Cup that year. He had a 1.95. I mean, that's pretty good, I would assume. I don't know if
that's pretty damn good at that time, yeah. Even. I mean, this year the goals per game average has went up. What, almost a half a goal, almost a game?
Right. I think something along those lines, yeah.
I mean, a lot of teams are attacking when they're shorthanded on power plays and either getting a lot more shorthanded goals or getting bit because they're being more aggressive shorthanded. So,
well, here's an interesting. It's not enough of a. He was a backup goalie, but Brian Elliott, of all people, we talked about giving up 5 goals, has one of the best of all time in the modern era at 1.56 goals, but that was over the course of 41 games. So I'm trying to find one that has the most games played. Let's see, over an 82-game season. Let's see, of the most games played, Martin Brodeur has a 2.18. He did it twice. Excuse me. Sorry. Sneeze. It's really hard, actually. I mean, of the most games played, I see a 2.03 out of Martin Brodeur, and that looks like the best, just basically eyeballing it here. There are some... I lied. I did some scrolling. Now I've got Marty Turco in 2003 and 4 had a 1.96. So, I mean, 2.4, like I said, is not bad, especially with the way, games of, the scoring has increased, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, it'll be interesting to see. I think Quick probably at the end of the day will be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I definitely could see it in the future, but as right now, how it stands, he'd be out with a good potential to get in.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's flip over. We were talking about the Doughty suspension, and let's talk about the Red Sox Yankees. Because anytime the bench is clear, which hasn't happened in a couple years, but it seems to happen when it does happen, it makes headlines. So, Joe Kelly, Tyler Austin, both suspended. I think Kelly was suspended 6 games. Austin was suspended 5 for their roles in the brawl. It never gets old with the Red Sox and Yankees, even when sometimes it seems like they're getting real friendly with each other. There always seems to be that bad blood brewing up.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think the bench is cleared twice in this game, if I'm not mistaken, too.
That is true. You are correct.
And, of course, one led to a brawl, but, I mean...
Yeah, well, obviously the big names were the Kelly and Austin. People were also fined.
Joe Torre was one.
Joe Torre. Joe Torre, the coach?
Oh, no. Never mind. Read the wrong thing.
He was the one who handed out the discipline. Sabathia, Alexander Bogarts, Pedroia, they were all fined, but none of them are going to be suspended for that. Well, I think Pedroia and Bogarts are on the DL.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a suspension.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, what do you make of this? I mean, every year we talk about, safety in baseball, and then, we talk about the benches clearing and everybody's okay for it. What are your thoughts on kind of, the benches clearing in baseball as opposed to, a fight breaking out in basketball? I mean, I tend to hear the notion when a fight breaks out in basketball, it's, it's a bunch of thugs and, they're just being idiots. But, you never really hear that in a lot of different, other sports. And I'll, I'm not trying to defend any sport specifically, because I'm not usually even a big basketball fan, but obviously fighting exists in hockey, and I like fighting as a part of hockey because I think it's the game's way of policing their own players. Basketball, football, it always just seems to be kind of you don't do that stuff in the game, and when it happens, it becomes such a media problem. But baseball seems to kind of, when a bench is clear, that kind of usually leads the headlines, on ESPN SportsCenter or what have you.
Yeah, it seems like almost like a rarity in these situations, and they're just trying to milk it for the media attention and all that right now because baseball doesn't really have much going for it right now. I mean, we're early in the season. I mean, even towards the end of the season, I mean, tempers flare and all that. The summer heat gets to them and all that. So,
yeah, I don't know. To me, it just seemed that specific brawl seemed really wimpy to me.
Yeah, my favorite brawl in the last few years was when Harper tried to take the mound and throws his helmet and completely whiffs.
Yeah, it slipped out of his hands or whatever.
Yeah. That was the funniest one in my mind.
I still think the best one of all time is when Pedro threw Dom Zimmer down.
Oh, yeah. Or the Nolan Ryan one.
Oh, Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura. That was a good one, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just, to me, I don't know, brawls in baseball just seem staged a little bit more now.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think it's almost like a publicity stunt for them to kind of get that media attention and be like, oh, baseball's somewhat interesting now. To maybe the fans that don't follow it as much.
Well, the situation with baseball is right now playoffs are starting in both NHL and NBA. And it's the same situation that the NBA and NHL have when I talk to a lot of people and they say, hockey season and basketball season don't start till January when the regular season in the NFL is over. Well, I have to feel like baseball really doesn't start for a lot of those same people until, June?
Yeah. Yeah, middle of June or something like that, yeah.
So you got to look at it a situation where baseball makes every attempt to stay relevant in April and May, but they have to realize that they have basically a free window of June, July, August, and the beginning of September where that's where the eyes are going to be on them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not to say that they don't want to ever, fall into irrelevancy, but I think every sport realistically with the eyes, you only have so many, you only have so much time in your life to watch something. NBA playoffs is always going to be more exciting, not necessarily to me, but to the casual sports fan, the NBA playoffs is always going to be more exciting than a regular season Major League Baseball game, even with a brawl.
Yeah, I would say so too, yeah.
So, let's see. We talked about the ejections.
Yeah.
You texted me during this and said you wanted to talk about the Masters bets. Is that because you squashed me?
Not necessarily that, but it was it came down to the wire, which was a hell of a good tournament in my mind. I mean, not everybody liked Reed winning for reasons, but I mean, I was happy with Reed as well as you. You made out a little at the party, so.
That is true. I did. We ended up chopping that up, but yeah, you're right. A lot of people are not happy with Reed winning. I mean, I haven't read a lot of the stories, but basically what I've read is two different things I've read is basically he has basically what's the word I'm looking for? Estranged himself from the family, his own family, and one side of the family believes it's because the family abused him, or one side of the story is that because he was abused as a kid. And the other side of the story is that he's got a gold-digging wife who wants his family out of the equation. So, pick a side, I guess, but it's a really weird situation, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I've heard other stories that I've read is that he's kind of a dick, in real life. So, I don't know who's doing it, but they're making it really hard.
I heard a story from former golf teammates at college or whatever that he was just kind of a complete asshole and all that. Like I'm winning this tournament, and if the team wins, cool. If not, I'm still winning this tournament.
Yeah. I mean, at face value, he doesn't strike me as either of those guys, but, you never know somebody until you really get to know him. So.
Yeah, it's hard to judge a book by its cover now based on everything that you see out here. So you can see somebody walking out in the street that looks like a bum, but they could whip out $50K in cash right on the spot.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what more comes out of it. If he continues to be a nuisance on the course. I mean, excuse me, not a nuisance. As long as he continues to play well on the course, his past may come up more often than not.
Yeah. And Tiger officially said that he is in for the U.S. Open. What's your thoughts of him taking a little break until then?
Did he say he wasn't playing anything until then?
Yeah, I believe that will be his next official tournament. Just going to be the U.S. Open.
Interesting. Where is the U.S. Open this year?
It's in the United States.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. Let's see. It's at Shinnecock Hills this year. Interesting. That's of course. Yeah. I know that Tiger knows pretty well up in New York. I don't know. I have an issue with what's the word? I have an issue with him taking the time off, considering well, that's not necessarily true. I have an issue with him not playing competitive organized golf. If he's still playing, I think he still has a chance because if he made it a mission to go there and play Shinnecock Hills, a few times before June 11th, or when is it? June 11th is when they start.
Yeah, June 11th.
U.S. Open week.
Practice round, yeah.
Yeah. Then I feel a little bit better. I mean, obviously, I'm not buying into Tiger until I see a lot more. I'm not saying I'm a skeptic. Realism shows me that, you've been out of the game. You've been out of the majors competitive game for 10 years. And you're all of a sudden just going to come back and win a very difficult course against the current crop of players. I don't know if I buy it.
No, I don't either. I mean, I was looking earlier this morning at odds for the U.S. Open, and I saw Tiger at 18-1. I believe he was 6th or 8th on the top of the sheet at 18-1. So it seems like sportsbooks are kind of learning from his play at the Masters. He's still Tiger, but we still want to give the bettors a reason to take him. And 18-1 doesn't strike me as a realistic odds for him at this point.
So he opened at 18-1 for the PGA, or for the U.S. Open, excuse me.
For the U.S. Open, yeah, is what I saw him at.
Well, I think the question is now is the sportsbooks have to kind of decide, what is a good number on him, especially since he's come out and said he's not playing anything before as far as being on the tour. I mean, we saw what he did. He finished, +1 for the tournament and the Masters, which is, of course, he knows. I anticipate if he comes out and has good rounds, even still, I can't imagine him being able to put it together for 4 days, especially through the thick of people chasing him. Like, I don't know if Tiger has the ability anymore to see Jordan Spieth doing what he did last Sunday and be able to just play through that. Does that make sense? I think his game's shaky enough right now. I think his game's too shaky right now.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, yeah. And I absolutely agree with that. His mindset it's there, but it's not consistent where it used to be, like, where he was just training putts from, 30-plus feet and making fantastic chip shots from any rough and all that. I mean, it'll be interesting to watch how he does in the U.S. Open, though. And I was looking at a few other people. I'm thinking about doing the same thing as I did with the Masters and light $200 on fire.
On Tiger, or are you talking about just other players?
No, on fire. Yeah, probably 4 golfers at $50 a pop again.
Who'd you have in the Masters? You had.
I had Adam Scott, Louis Oosthuizen, Charles Schwartzel, and Molinari.
Okay. Are you considering doing guys with lower odds with your $50?
Yeah, probably 50-1 or longer.
Oh, so you're just doing longer then? You're just doing the longer odds?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I would say if I did that, I would put 30 on the longer shots and maybe 50 or 60 on some of the guys who are maybe around 20-1.
50, 61.
Yeah.
Oh, 21. I don't know. I look almost every day at the odds and go from there, and usually the week of is when I decide to make my bet. So
that's fair.
Yeah, because you never know. Somebody could get injured, and you just light that ticket on fire or something. And with the Masters, you don't even know if people are going to be qualifying for it. So,
well, DJ's opened up as the favorite right now at 9-1.
DJ,
depending on where you look.
What's Spieth at the moment?
Spieth, according to this, is 12-1 on William Hill.
I actually think that's decent value there. With Spieth, how he ended the Masters, he's one of the best players with a flat stick in my mind, and that will, I think, if anyone wins this tournament, I think it will be due to that. So,
what do you think about guys like Jason Day right now? He's not playing good golf, but he feels like a modern-day Tiger Woods right now. He feels like I'm in the same boat. When he has a decent round or two, he jumps back up into those big numbers, or those small numbers, I guess you could say. And then in these majors, he just hasn't really been effective or even relevant, for a number of different reasons. He seems to me like I liked Jason Day going into the day, or going into the weekend last weekend, and he was just never there. But it seems like lately that's been his MO.
Do you think it's more of his health or more of his mental game, or kind of both situation?
I mean, that's what I wonder. A lot of his health has to maybe do with his mental game. He just seems to be seems to be today's tricky Tiger Woods. Put a couple of good rounds and is Jason Day back? Well, no, he's not.
Well, he just disappeared again.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand, it's really hard to win a major. That's why the dominance of Jack Nicholson. I always do that. Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods should be put on such a display. I mean, to win 14, 18 major tournaments is so hard to do. I mean, look how. What do we got? Rory next right now with like 5, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
So I mean, it's hard to do. So I mean, I wouldn't call Jason Day a failure, but it's just really, there's a lot of different reasons. He's just not putting it together like we all thought he would.
Yeah, it would be nice to see him do well, but I mean, with mainly his health right now, I don't see him putting around 4 very decent rounds or very good rounds to win a major at the moment.
Right. Yeah, it'd be tough for him, so we'll see what happens. I mean, still rooting for him.
Yeah.
See what happens. I like Jason Day as a golfer.
Oh, I do too. And Ricky tried to come back at the Masters too. I mean, that was pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, I mean, he finished second, 1 behind. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if Reed would have missed that putt, he would have been in a playoff.
Yeah, I mean, that was no easy putt. I know myself, I'd probably make that 10% of the time if I'm lucky.
I've watched you play golf, and I think the number's lower than 10%.
I was going to say 20, and I was going to be like, that's giving me way too much credit.
I would say if you had that exact putt for that amount of money and a green jacket on the line, you make that putt 1 in 100 times.
I think that's more realistic, yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, let's put Tiger on the back burner in the U.S. Open because it'll be here before we know it. What is that, a couple of months away?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kaepernick, which is always a touchy subject, but this is an interesting one. It basically, Seahawks and Kaepernick were supposed to arrange for a workout this week, and the Seahawks have basically shut that workout down for the time being. The reason that many sources are reporting is because that Kaepernick did not say one way or the other that he would stop kneeling during the national anthem next season. What are your thoughts initially just on that, at face value?
I mean, I understand what Kaepernick's trying to get his point across and all that. I think he's just kind of going at it the wrong way and just. I'm actually surprised some teams are actually talking to him at the moment and trying to do workouts with him, see how he is and all that. But, I mean, that might be kind of for media attention for them at the moment. I mean, Seattle did end up signing Stephen Morris, who was an undrafted free agent out of Miami and never played a regular season game, so.
Yeah, I think Stephen Morris is kind of a Russell Wilson prototype. Obviously, the talent's not nearly the same. And you could say, Kaepernick obviously easily has more talent than Stephen Morris, and obviously is also similar to Russell Wilson's playing style. He has a decent arm. He can run when he needs to, and he has the ability to lead a team. He's obviously done that with San Francisco. To me, I don't know. It just seems Morris is a camp arm. We get that. The question I have is that, if Kaepernick is really interested in getting into the NFL, it's going to be hard for him because he's suing the NFL right now over a collusion case. Not only that, now telling the teams that you are not, you're not telling the teams anything when they ask you if you'd stop kneeling during the anthem. Look, the NFL teams are a business. Their goal is to not really piss off any half. The country's so polarizing at this point that you're going to piss. No matter what you do, you're going to piss off half the country. I mean, we saw it in we saw it in our election. Half the country voted for one, half the country voted for the other. Everything politically is so polarizing right now. So when you're telling a team who's just trying to stand right in the middle of every single fan that they have, that you can't guarantee that you're not going to kneel and piss off one half of the fan base, or not kneel, and then piss off the other half of the fan base who thinks you should be kneeling. It's Colin Kaepernick's doing this to himself at this point.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely, yeah.
You want to be involved in a business. That's like me saying, I want to go be the CEO of Disney World. I know that's not a thing, but I know it's the CEO of Disney's company. I'm just saying, I want to be the CEO of Disney World, but I want to wear Universal Studios clothing to work every day.
Yeah, that's actually a good point and great look at it. Yeah,
you know, I want to represent a company, but I want to do what I want inside that company during business time.
Yep, and it could be with another company that you're supporting or whatnot.
That may not be the greatest example, but the point being is that you can't want to be involved. There's so many other avenues for him to both do his activism and play football. I mean, he can go to Canada. But obviously, taking him out of Canada makes him out of sight, out of mind to the American public. So he's got to decide what's more important to him. Is it his activism or is it his football career? Because if you want to be in the NFL is basically telling you, we want you to stop kneeling. They never said you couldn't go out and have your speeches, have your talks, make your donations, which is what the real activism is: making donations, being involved in your community. Sitting there kneeling for a flag. The problem I have is, and I don't know. The problem I see with this, he kneels for a flag and creates all this controversy and says, well, it's not anti-military, it's not anti-police or anything. It's just that I want to bring up the way people of color are treated. And then he sits there and wears a Fidel Castro shirt in Miami, which is a huge problem if you understand how people in Miami feel about Fidel Castro. And he wears the socks with the pigs, the pig police, which obviously a well-known derogatory statement for police is the pigs. So what do you want to do? You can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and do these kinds of things and then be like, well, I'm preaching advocacy and, our people are violent, or treated violently. It's like you can't, I'm not trying to pander to anybody's, political issues here, but you're contradicting yourself at that point. And now,
he easily could go at a much better way and handle a much better situation.
But my problem is you're contradicting yourself, and as a contracted member at the time of the NFL, you have created a bad image for the NFL, whatever side it's on. You've created a bad image that the NFL, either supports the problems that he's trying to, actively bring to light, or you're protesting, you're pissing off the half of the country that supports the police and the military by kneeling for the anthem. So you've put the NFL in a bad light, and now you can't. And also, you sued the NFL. You've also sued the NFL now for this collusion conspiracy case. And we've had this conversation. I believe that even if the owners were colluding, who cares? It's their business. It's their brand. If all 32 owners...
Their money, too, and all that.
Yeah, if all 32 owners came out and said, yes, we do not want Colin Kaepernick or any player who has the same feelings or is going to protest in the same manner on our team or in our business. Obviously, they're not going to because of the exact reasons I just said. They're not going to rock the boat on either side of the political spectrum. But if they came out and were convicted of this collusion, I don't see the issue. They have the right to do whatever they want. They're not shutting him out of the league based on his color. They're not shutting him out of the league based on his sexual orientation, which I believe his protesting doesn't fall under the Employment Opportunity or the Equal Opportunity Employment Act. You're protesting on work hours. You're doing something technically that would be against the company policy, which is doing something on your own time that the company doesn't necessarily endorse. So couple that with you're suing the NFL for collusion, couple that with you've basically polarized yourself against two separate parties, one way or the other, and then you sit there and wonder why you can't get a job. I mean, take a look in the mirror.
Yeah. And in some cases, he's going against both sides of the situations, too. Like you said, like kind of contradicting himself and all that stuff.
I would honestly say, whatever team signs him or is interested in bringing him in, if you really don't want him to kneel during the anthem, you put a contract in his clause.
Mm-hmm.
And then
absolutely.
You'll see exactly what his intentions are. Because I don't believe that anybody thinks that Colin Kaepernick's ever going to be a starting quarterback again. So if his goal right now is to get on a team so he can continue to be relevant for his activism, then the companies, a.k.a. the franchises, need to find a way to work that into a deal that basically says your contract voids if you take a knee. And he can come back and, say, hey, look, I want you guys to be more open to my activism off the field. And they can say, look, that's fine. We'll help you out in certain situations when we can. But when you're on the field during work time, you are expected to act a certain way. And I know it's not going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not going to happen because that situation is just going to come out. And that's why I think it's better for teams to just ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
The more you ignore something, the more it goes away. And the thing is when he sues the NFL for collusion, I really hope that they find that the teams were colluding, and the teams basically come out and say, we don't care.
Yeah. I mean, they have every right not to sign players based on multiple reasons, so.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Colin Kaepernick's better than all 32 backup quarterbacks in the league. I've said that before. He deserves a spot based on his talent he deserves a roster spot on his talent to be on a roster next year. And going forward. But if you continue to be a constant distraction for reasons that the NFL does not want a distraction, you're not going to be on a team. And you know what? And the same goes with Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel has to do something to prove that he's not the head case he was, 3-4 years ago? Not even. Yeah, about 3 years ago. And at least on paper, or at least at face value, he's looking like he's making that attempt. Now, if Johnny Manziel never gets a chance in the league again, I mean, it's not going to hurt my feelings. But I think Johnny Manziel is going to get another attempt at the league before Colin Kaepernick does, even though this one seemed like, I think Colin Kaepernick's a perfect fit in Seattle. He's a mirror image of Russell Westbrook. Russell Wilson. The talent levels obviously, are different. It's a liberal city, a liberal owner, and it would sit there. But the owners, or at least somebody in the system, still thought, kneeling is not something they're interested in doing. So he could really be loved in a very blue city without having to do the things that the NFL doesn't want him to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and talk about a franchise that has had a lot of different, let's call them mouthpieces the last few years.
Yeah.
So it does come as a bit of surprise to me for all of the mouthpieces that they've had the last few years who are now out of town for them to bring in Colin Kaepernick. It's really, did you really learn from anything? Because, I mean, for all of the talking that Seattle did to win one Super Bowl and die off really fast, it just seems to me that they would have learned. I mean, they had a modicum of success, but it didn't last as long as it probably should have.
Yeah, they're almost going from first to pretty close to the bottom of the barrel in their division within 2-3 years' time.
I mean, look at it this way. If Arizona drafts a quarterback who could be immediately impactful out of the gate, Seattle might be the worst team in that division from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to think with a guy who, with Russell Wilson, who, without Tom Brady, maybe should have been the MVP last year.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's interesting. I think now that this all came out, and we'll have to see what comes down the pipeline with the collusion case, but, if they're bringing in if people are bringing in Colin Kaepernick at this point in this whole story, it's not to be a camp arm. I mean, teams are legitimately testing him out or bringing him in to be a solid part of this team, obviously more than likely a backup. But if he really wants a job, he has to seriously look in the mirror and consider what is more important to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Well, moving on, more football talk. I see a report just pop up Cowboys expected to release Dez Bryant. I know him and Jerry Jones are having a little meeting today, but what's your thoughts about that?
Well, he got released 25 minutes ago.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he actually got released about a half an hour ago.
No.
So my thoughts are that he'll probably get released.
I mean, do you think the Cowboys just wanted to save that cap space and make their point across, like, hey, we know you're great, but you're not worth that much, especially if you're down in your last year?
Well, I mean, you got to look at it. I mean, he hasn't been the receiver that got him paid in 3 years. He signed 2015. He signed a contract, and he hasn't had a year better than 70 catches or 830 yards since then. So part of it, yes, the Cowboys are pretty strapped with salary, and that's obviously why they asked him to take a pay cut at that point. But you know, it's not the first player that we've ever seen this happen. He won't be the last player that we've ever seen this happen. He may be the most publicized player in a long while that's refused to take a pay cut. I don't know. I mean, if he signs on somewhere and puts up 1,000-yard seasons again, then, you know, good for him. But he wasn't putting up the production to warrant the contract that he signed. So while most players believe that you get paid the big money for what you did in the past, businesses, franchise, have to look at it as, we're paying you to do things in the future. And that's where the odds kind of butted. That's where Jones and Bryant kind of butted heads, because, you know, Jones feels he's paying him for future production, which didn't happen. And Bryant felt he was being paid for past production, which didn't happen. And you know what? If the Cowboys weren't at a huge salary cap, you know, crunch right now, they probably would have left this alone. But they need to find the money somewhere. And Dez Bryant's not worth the double amount, you know, that they were going to pay him as a $16 million cap figure, that they'd rather have the $8 million with the move. So I don't necessarily have a problem with the situation. It leaves them very thin at wide receiver. I definitely see them in the market for one, obviously, this year in the draft. But they signed Allen Hurns and Deontay Thompson. The guess is that they're going to start looking at, like, not start, but they've probably already been looking at, like, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton out of SMU, who's right in their backyard. So, you know, it's, I don't know. It's not shocking or surprising. When you're unwilling to take a pay cut and the team has no salary space, you're probably looking at being, couple that with your lack of production, you're probably looking at being one of the first casualties at that point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Especially with a couple seasons of down performance. So.
Yep. So I don't know, and he'll move on, and we'll see, because, you know, Oakland just signed Jordy Nelson. You know, so there's one less roster spot there. I mean, anybody can always be in the market for a receiver, but I'm curious as to what he thinks he's going to get on the open market at this point.
Fair enough.
I mean, he has the right to go get whatever he can, but, you know, can you really see him making 7 or 8 this year?
Probably not.
So we will see. All right, let's set the bar here. Let's set the over/under on Dez Bryant. Not for a bet, just for something to reference back. I'm going to set the average annual value of Dez Bryant's next contract at $7 million.
I would take the under.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking under too.
Yeah, I'm thinking more closer to like 6 is realistic. Because he still has the potential based on his past performance, whether he does or not. In that kind of situation, if I'm a team, I put a low guarantee on that contract with a lot of incentive based.
Yeah, that's fair. I could see something like that happen. All right, well, let me follow that up with over/under July 1st of when he's on another roster. Over being later.
I would say under.
He'll be on the...
I'd say he signs with the team before July 1st.
Okay. All right. Well, I think he stays off the market until closer to the regular season.
Right around being preseason or middle of that.
I think the beginning of August is when you start seeing somebody picking up the phone for him. I'm not saying that they won't pick up the phone for him, because I think he'll get calls, but I think it'll take a while with Dez Bryant's ego to come down to the price that we're talking about here. Because I think he's going to start at 10. I think his in his mind, he's going to start his negotiations at $10 million, and people are going to be like, "All right, thanks for your time."
Just pretty much, hey, how's it going, Dez? You want 10?
Or who knows?
5.
Who knows? The Rams may be all in, and they may give him 10. I don't know what their salary cap situation is, because I know they're all in right now while Goff is making next to nothing. So.
Yeah, with all of them picking up all the free agents and all that, I mean, they picked up Sue, they picked up...
Well, they traded for Peters, traded for Talib.
Yeah.
Who else did they get? They got one other guy, I forget off the top of my head, but they're definitely going all in right now at this point. So Dez Bryant may be another piece to that if they can make the numbers work.
Yep.
I mean, Dez Bryant basically needs a situation where he's not the number one option, but it's going to get paid like one, which it's hard-pressed to find any destination where that would exist. I mean, New England would be great. I just don't know if they have $10 million in salary cap.
Yeah. Well, they just picked up Brandon Cooks as well, so.
Oh, Brandon Cooks, that's what I was thinking of. Speaking of New England.
Yeah. Yeah.
So could you imagine Brandon Cooks, Dez Bryant, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods for Goff to throw to? I mean, that could be dangerous if Bryant doesn't have to be the number one guy.
Yeah, that would be disgusting. I would hate to play in that division, or let alone ones in the regular season.
Yeah, and the thing is, these are the type of, I mean, I'm always a proponent of, like, I never feel bad for a player not getting money. Like not getting, when they're negotiating as a free agent and they're saying, I won't play for 48 unless you make it $52 million. I'll never feel bad for a guy for not getting that. But you always kind of feel, at one point in time, the team gave him this amount of money. They made a decision to make an investment, and now that investment's kind of biting them. I don't have a problem with Dez Bryant saying, I'm not willing to take a pay cut because this is what, if I go to work tomorrow, and they say, I need you to take, I don't know what they were telling, Dez to take, but if, say I made, $1.6 million to work at my job, and they said, I need you to make 600, and I need to take a pay cut, I need you to, we're only going to pay you $750,000. I feel like I would be the exact same way. So I don't have a problem with what Bryant did. The
absolutely,
company, if they cut me, they cut me. But I mean, if I feel like my value is at $1.6 million, I can find that hopefully in another market. That's the plan. So I understand exactly what Dez Bryant's saying. The difference is what I do for a job, I can do just at the same talent level for another company, whereas Dez Bryant probably doesn't have the ability to do the same job for $16 million anymore in his life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
if you're
go ahead.
Yeah, if you're expected to make that much money, I mean, of course you got to perform, but I mean, you sign that contract, you should know what you are making, and
no, of course you got to perform.
If you don't perform,
and nobody will say that Dez Bryant has performed. But what I'm saying is that if I sign that contract to work my job at $1.6 million, and then I haven't performed, I either need to be told I'm not performing, which I don't think anybody told that to him. I mean, he may obviously know that his numbers aren't up to par with a guy who makes $16 million. But I'm saying, hey, look, this is what we agreed upon. This is what you're going to pay me. I'll do better, but I'm not doing it for the numbers that you want me to do it. So you either need to cut me or continue paying me the money. And this company, being the Cowboys, has the ability to have an out. So,
and who knows? They might try and give him a call during free agency and try and pick him up again for what they were trying to offer. So
maybe. I got to imagine this bridge is pretty burned at this point.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that about wraps up this episode of the Vegas Squares podcast. We appreciate you listening. You can listen to us on 12 Ounce Sports Radio every Tuesday and Saturday, Tuesday evening, Saturday morning. ForwardMile.com, you can catch us on there. Subscribe to their daily fantasy services, and you also get access to our premium podcasts. Also, you can check us out at South Point. What is that, tomorrow? We will be
tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Yep, tomorrow at 8 p.m. We will be there supporting one of our main sponsors, Chai Poker, as they host a charity tournament benefiting local Clark County charities. So if you have a chance to get out there for a good cause, hit us up, Hit us up and head out to the South Point Hotel and Casino to play the poker tournament. Like you said, 8 o'clock, free parking, free pizza. Free pizza, I believe, starts at 7. If you go out there and you see Ben, the head of the charity, please say hi to him and tell him that we sent you. He's definitely working his butt off for a really good cause, so it's nice to see, hopefully, a good turnout for him. So we will
absolutely.
We will have more on that, the recap on that on our next podcast. So hopefully one of us will take it down. I think if I take it down, I'm just going to give everything to the charity. So that'll be my
I'm thinking the same.
So, anyways, we appreciate you listening. For Anthony, for Aaron, well, I am Aaron. So for Anthony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you tuning in, and check us out on the next podcast. Remember, you can always listen to our podcast at vegassquares.com. Click the podcast tab, and you can scroll down all of our other podcasts. So we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time.